Sandra, whenever you're ready.
Let me make sure I unmute myself, right? So, good morning, everyone. Thank you, TJ, for having me. My name is Staggers, and I am an outreach and training coordinator from the on the Move. I work in New York City, and we work in all 5 boroughs. I am happy to be here. Today, we're just going to talk about how to understand and respond to the anger that we can see in families, as well as sometimes we may have some anger ourselves, right? As family peer advocates. So that's what we're going to do today. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are some of the learning objectives today? We are going to understand or learn to understand some of the origins of the caregivers and the youth that we work with. We also want to learn some effective ways to respond to anger. And we're going to do some scenarios. We're going to have some breakout sessions. And we're going to have some practical tools and strategies to help us to help the parents to learn how to understand each other and just helping families to understand the dynamic of their own anger so that they can move on. Thank you. Next slide. Okay. Why does it matter that we talk about anger, right? Anger first is one of those emotions that all of us have. It's a human emotion, and many of us will see families come in very angry because of what's going on. So we have to talk about it and we have to be able to know how to work and to be able to navigate that. Families often feel judged and misunderstood or even blamed when they come into the doors. And a lot of times we're not their first stop. So it is very important that we understand where that anger is coming from. And the family peer advocates can shift from that narrative of what's wrong with you to what happened to you. Let's have a conversation. Next slide. So as we work in this field, we work with families who have a lot of trauma, right? And we are one of the people in the team that will be able to hopefully give them a different experience. But we have to realize that families are coming traumatized. Even if they don't come into any system with trauma, many times they leave with trauma. So we want to talk about some of these principles of feeling safe, because if they don't feel safe, they're not going to open up, they're not going to move on. We also want to build trust and transparency so they can be honest with us and that we can also be honest with them and tell them what some of the skills and things that they can use and how they can feel they can feel as if they can tell us things without being judged, right? So we have to have that peer-to-peer support is really the thing that binds that together, because a family peer advocate, you're going to share your story, strategically, so that you can connect with them when it's appropriate to do so. And we want to learn how to have collaboration, healthy collaboration with them, so that not only will they work well with us, but other service providers as well. We can be the bridge to them to learn how to navigate the system of ACS and children's services, education, or the other child system services that their children may be in, their youth may be in. We want to empower them with information and knowledge and some tools so that one day we don't have to continuously work with them. But our job as a family advocate, I always say the most important job I have is to almost talk myself out of having a job. So I'm going to help the families to know the skills that I have so that they can pick up the baton and run with it themselves. And we have to be able to be culturally sensitive and have humility where we can learn and understand that we don't judge, but we come from a place of learning, you know, who the families are, how we can connect with them and respect their culture. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's look at the family lens. Families operate in an interconnected emotional system. So what does that mean? That means what's going on for the youth is affecting the parent or the caregiver. What's happening with the caregiver and maybe their spouse is also going to affect our youth and our young people. So we can't look at just one particular person in a family. Many times you may have a parent that will say, fix my child. Think they're the problem, right? So we have to understand that we have to work with the whole family and understanding that one connects with another, right? And when we see anger or what we view as anger, really doesn't belong to only one person. There may be one person that's comfortable showing it, but it's still every single person in that family is going to have some type of situation. Anger might be either passively, or aggressively, or assertively shown. So we want to definitely know how families operate, and we need to be able to be knowledgeable of that. And stress is only one part of the system that affects the whole. When mom is stressed, the children are stressed, right? So we want to be able to understand that, and anger we're going to talk about in a moment is a stress response. If my Wi-Fi gets wonky, I apologize. I already see. Hopefully, you guys will be able to hear me. But we want to be able to understand that stress in a family affects every single person. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. So sometimes a parent or a caregiver or even a young person who may be very angry or seeming to be very angry. And a lot of times they might not follow through with some of the things that they are asked to do, whether it's complete a parent's task, coming every week to the youth group, right? Coming to anger management, right? Domestic violence and so forth. We have to realize that anger is not defiance, right? It's a signal, right? It's letting us know that something is going on. It's not a character flaw, it's a natural emotion. Anger is actually a very important emotion that we all must have because it lets us know that something is wrong, right? So, what does anger, gives us information, sorry, that we are able to help the families to digest that, break it down, and we need to let them know that anger is a stress response. When you're stressed out, sometimes it looks like anger. Unmet needs, right? Something that this family needs. It needs to be heard, it needs to be seen, it needs to be feeling safe, right? And anger is also a protective behavior. Sometimes a person can be angry because they are building a wall because they were hurt before when they let their guards down before. So it's important that we understand those three concepts of anger, right? That we need to be able to understand what is the response that we must see, right? Stress is important because that's going to be able to let families know that, okay, let's identify what's stressing you so that we can do have some steps. Unmet needs, what are those needs? Protective factors, again, what happened to you, right? And anger is not disrespect, it's not defiance, and it's not a lack of caring. Even if someone doesn't come every week, it doesn't mean they don't care. Sometimes it can be just being overwhelmed. Thank you. Next. Okay, so what happens when anger becomes so big that it can almost hijack us, right? So the brain, a lot of times, it will shut down, or half of the brain will become numb, and the other half can be overly active, right? So a lot of times when it gets to be too much, our body automatically goes to the fight, flight, or the freeze response, right? So when you have a parent that seems combative, whatever you say, they want to say different. They want to say, you don't know what you're talking about, right? When you have someone that, when you are talking to that young person, and when you want to talk about what's going on, they might leave the room or they might not show up, right? Because they want to flee too much. And sometimes people just freeze. They don't say anything or they don't give you meaningful information because they just shut down because again, feeling the feelings can get too much. So our brain is wired to protect us, right? The survival skills, right? I have to fight to get out of here because I'm in danger. I have to leave because I'm in danger. I got to shut down because if I feel what I feel, it's going to overwhelm me, right? And when those feelings get overwhelmed, the brain goes offline. You don't make good choices, right? You sometimes react just on impulse, right? And you don't really make wise decisions. So we need to be able to understand when we meet families where they are, that we have to be able to understand the whole dynamic of what's going on, what's underneath the anger. Anger often emerges when people feel unsafe, unheard, and powerless. So when I feel like someone's going to hurt me, well, what I say to you, you're going to use it against me. Every time I say something, you tell me something else. And all the systems keep on telling me I got to do this, I have to do this, and nothing that I do is good enough. I feel it. So that's what happens to the brain. Next slide, please. Right. So what are some of those emotions that anger often covers? It covers fear, fear of what's going to happen, fear of being judged, right? Shame. Why am I here? Being in this situation. So there may be a lot of shame, guilt, grief, right? Sometimes I can be hurt. I can be so hurt that you take my kids away. I got to do this program. You're telling me that I'm not a good mom or dad. So I can dying. I can almost feel helplessness because, again, I've asked for help and maybe didn't receive the type of help that I needed. Or maybe the help that I got, I didn't know how to really utilize it because of my skill set, right? I've been talking to a therapist that was talking over me. Maybe they didn't speak my language. Maybe they didn't respect my culture and my experience. I'm just being overwhelmed. So many things on my plate. I don't only have this one kid. I have other children. I have bills. I have relationships, I have, to go to 4 or 5 appointments and feeling misunderstood. Every time I said I need help, you're telling me I need a parenting class. Can you just listen? Right. So again, I feel like you're not hearing me. You're just wanting to hear what you want to hear. So parents and youth feel misunderstood. Next slide. So when we have anger and we have these behaviors or these episodes, we have to realize that sometimes it's not even just the here and now that we're being affected by. We work with a lot of families who are low income, a lot of black and brown families who already feel oppressed by the system, a history of oppression, right? And what happens is, especially now, where we see what's going on in the world, we see what's going on in government, we see, what's going on, these are trickling down, and some of our families are afraid because there's some families being detained or just scared to receive services, right? It's important that we are able to understand that again, sometimes that anger is for their protection. How a lot of times we hear about those conversations that parents have with their Black sons, right? Be safe, right? So when I yell at you, when I'm yelling because you didn't come in on time, it's not because I'm angry, I'm scared. I'm trying to protect you, right? I'm trying to protect my family. I want us to stay together. And distrust of a system can imply emotional response. So again, every time, I'm trying to tell you my child needs some support, but you're telling me that I'm a bad parent, or you're telling me that my child has to leave my home, needs this particular service, or my child needs medication, or whatever it is, it's going to elicit a response because it happened to me or my family or my history in the past. So sometimes again, bring up things that happened in the past, and it can just accumulate to what's going on right now. Next slide, please. Okay. So in each family, when we have already, we have our responses, the things that we may, be covering up, and not even knowing that covering up emotions. So we have family members in certain roles, whether it's the caregiver, whether it's the child, whether it's the child that's with the mental health disorder or a sibling. You have different positions in the family, and these roles are not only for one person, sometimes they may rotate. So you may have a person that is considered the exploder, right? The exploder is the person that feels, you know, okay to sometimes explode, yell, scream, fight, right? Because they're letting you know there's something going on and I need some help, right? What is the most important part of being an exploder is being able to help that person to be able to identify things that you're feeling. Because if you're not able to name it, a lot of times you're not able to get healing from it. So once you're able to name it, you're able to manage that emotion, ask for help, because now you have some type of guideline of, okay, where am I going to go with this situation? Sometimes you also can have a person who is also peacemaker. This is the person that doesn't want to cause waves. This is a person that's in the family that sometimes may be quiet and try to, let everybody, be okay. They're the, a lot of times the mom, not all the time, but sometimes it's the child, if they're parentified, that's trying to make sure that. So sometimes that peacekeeper is the one that is sometimes denying their own feelings of what's going on because they have to take care of so many others, right? So it's important that we are able to identify, that peacekeeper, and how do we help that person find a voice for themselves? The avoider is the person who is, again, sometimes shutting down, doesn't want to sit down to have the conversation because it's too painful, either to have the conversation or they may not feel comfortable getting confronted with truths, so they avoid situations, right? And this is a person that might not come to your groups, even though you call them and say, I missed you this week, and they don't show up, right? The young person that doesn't come to the group, that doesn't go to therapy, always avoiding, even avoiding conflict sometimes. So again, they sometimes just want to step out of it. They don't have to feel, right? And then you have the fixer. This is the person that wants to make sure that everything is just right because they're trying to make it right for everyone to either function, or they want it to look all right to the outside. So it's important that we also identify how much stress and what that person may be feeling because of them feeling the need to have to fix everything. It's important that when we identify these different roles, that we are able to help them to sit down and again identify, what are you feeling, what's going on for you, so that we can get to the next step of healing and moving progressively and not getting stuck in any particular roles, especially those roles that are dysfunctional in the family. Okay, next slide, please. Okay. What are some of the needs that families have that causes them to show this anger, right? Again, to feel heard. Sometimes a family may be going into an environment and they are being told exactly what they need to do. This is what you need to do to get your kids back. This is what you need to do to get this case closed. This is what you need to do for to live your life, right? And again, a lot of times they don't feel as if they have a position or the time or the respect of someone hearing them, listening to them, what they feel that they need. So when you don't feel heard, you are going to get angry because, again, that is a natural need, right? And even think about babies when you cry, because I'm hungry, right? Because I need to be changed. If nobody changes me, if nobody feeds me, that's going to cause anger in the child, right? To feel safe, to feel safe in my home, to feel safe in my body, right? Again, when families don't feel safe, when individuals don't feel safe, they may have an anger response because, again, I have to do something to protect myself because no one else has protected me. To feel respected, right? People need to be able to understand that when they speak, that people are going to care and respect their opinion, even if it differs from our opinion. And again, that's about cultural competence as well, humility, that we want to help families to be able to reach their goals and respect what they feel their family needs. And we have to give them that ear because that will cause anger, to feel understood, not just to hear me, but to understand some of my thoughts, my concerns, and my fears. So when this child is cursing me out, and I'm telling you that this is the reason why we had an altercation, I need you to hear me that I love my child. I'm not trying to hurt my. I'm not a bad parent. My child, I need to be understood by you that I. How can you help me? And to feel supported when all those things are happening, when I feel heard, when I feel safe, when I feel respected and understood, then I can feel supported and not judged by you because now we're moving to a different step of engagement. Next slide, please. Okay. So when we get to now understanding why I'm angry and understanding why they may be behaving the same way, the way that they behave. Now, sometimes some behaviors that are problematic, but now we have a set of they're angry. And a lot of times when you meet a person when they're angry, they're going to behave in a way that will be a lot of times inappropriate or even unsafe for the group or even for one-on-one. So our job is to learn how to de-escalate. So de-escalation through connection. We ourselves, we peer advocates, have that lived experience, and we want to be able to connect with them because we have that common thread. So you want to stay calm. You want to make sure that you're lowering your voice, right? You want to make sure that you're able to be with them so that your warm presence can help them to calm down as you stay went to the space, and you want to be able to validate their feelings. They may have feelings that's really big and really outrageous. That you know what, I can understand how you can be that angry. Um, let's talk. Let's figure this out together. All right, we're gonna go on. Um, reflect what you hear. That is so important to have that active listening skill because a lot of times you can be interacting with someone and they may be saying something and you may be hearing something else. So reflect what you hear, then now you know you guys are on the same page and you know that okay, these are going to be the next steps. And this person, again, they feel heard because they hear you, paraphrasing what they said. And you want to slow the pace down because when people get angry, they start moving faster, their heart beat faster, they move faster, a lot of things. And give choices. You may want to say, do you want to come over here and sit down? You want to take a moment to step away? You want to get a drink of water? Some kids you may want to, do you want to play with some Play-Doh? Do you want me to give you a paper that you can, draw? So you want to give choices. Next slide, please. Okay. So what are some of the things we can say we are trying to de-escalate, right? A situation so that we don't create a situation where they get more angry or more hostile, right? So I'm going to say things like this. I hear how hard this has been. It makes sense you feel this way. You want this. Those are things that help families understand that they're heard and that you're with them. You want to avoid those statements that say, calm down, you're overreacting. You should feel that way, right? Because now you're telling them what they should do, right? So you want to be able to meet them where they are by having education that's going to be supportive. So another way of creating safety is sure that you have boundaries, right? Boundaries are not to hold people back, but to create safety for each person, right? So it's very important that we understand that they're not, but this is just a safety tool. And when you create boundaries in the beginning and they are clear, then you can build relationships built on respect and trust, and there's no miscommunication, right? Proper boundaries for youth advocates is not to get too friendly with the youth. Proper boundaries for family advocates, the same thing, right? We want to have proper boundaries at the beginning so there's no misunderstandings, right? So I want to hear you, and I can do that best when we speak respectfully. That's a statement that you will normally use when you have a parent or someone that's yelling and screaming, cursing at you, right? So you want them to know, I hear you. That's the way that I can help, is if we talk to each other respectfully. Let's take a moment and come back to this. There may be a situation that is a trigger and it is bringing up a lot of different emotions, different reactions for the family. And sometimes instead of us trying to deal with it and talking over each other, we can just say, let's do this, right? And again, when cooler heads prevail, more, work done, and you can have a more respectful relationship. I'm here to support you, not to judge you, right? As a family advocate, we will always want to be honest, always want to give, information. And sometimes we have to say, Miss Johnson, you didn't come to parenting class. This is why you was dropped, or the reason why ACS is saying this is because I'm looking at the chart and you haven't come. It's not about judging you, but we just need to know, okay, so what was going on? How can I help? So again, we're not going to not tell the truth. We want to say it in a respectful way. And sometimes when you tell the truth to families, it can feel to them like judging. So you want to make sure that they know, no, we just trying to figure out what will be the next step so that we can be able to get to where we need to be, so that we can get your goals met. Next slide, please. Okay. So now when the anger is directed at you, because again, you are the safest person in the room. The family advocate is not ACS, is not foster care, the foster care worker or agency. So a lot of times they know, especially if you already have a relationship and you gave them, I'm not a mandated service. You come here voluntarily. You may have been mandated to come here through other, agencies, but you have rights here, you have a voice here, you can decide to leave, and you give them, that engagement piece. Sometimes they may have some safety with you so that they may feel comfortable sometimes showing their anger towards you, even if it may be towards another worker, their child, or their partner, or whoever it may be. So you want to first, don't take it personally. They don't know you, right? They come a lot of times the first day and they're already angry. No, it's not towards you. It's about the system. It's about the situation. And when we don't personalize it, then we can move to a positive place of respect and understanding. But you have to recognize that. Recognize that the projection of what's going on in the system and the stressfulness of having to do multiple services, multiple groups, having to go into therapy, having to go to classes, having so I gotta go to the school to deal with the teachers that's saying this. I have to go to public assistance, get money, or I gotta sometimes take off from my job. It's so stressing. My boss is on my back. So a lot of times it's just being overwhelmed with the system, and we have to maintain calm and a grounded presence because again, we want to be able to lend our calmness to them as we are practicing these skills for ourselves. We are modeling for them how to be, right? Because you want them to be able to know how to sometimes deal with that unease. So you want to be able to redirect them to, okay, let's talk about what are some of the shared goals that we have. You want to finish a family class, or you want to get your children back, or you want to be able to get along with your parent. So let's talk about some of those that we share together so that again we can redirect that anger to something that's going to be more productive. Next slide. Okay. Supporting parents, right? As a family peer advocate, we are meeting the parents where they are, and we want to normalize this experience. Normalizing the experience means letting them know that but it is difficult raising a child, even whether the child has a diagnosis or not, right? So you want to validate their stress. It is stressful having to meet every 2 weeks or every month, however often. It is hard to go to your therapy appointments, take your child to their therapy appointments. You may have to go to anger management class, parenting classes. Some people have to go to DV classes. Some people have to also go to drug treatment and, take drug tests every week. So validate the stress. Let them know that I hear you. And I don't see the slide. Okay, go back one. Thank you. And we want to go back one. Thank you. So we want to be able to help them identify those triggers because a lot of times parents have so much stress, or the caregivers have so much stress that they have a lot of triggers and they don't know which one is the one that is, causing them to have reactions. So help them to identify that sometimes just walking into the ACS office or the child systems office is already a trigger before the worker says one thing to them. So they're able to identify that it's not the worker that, by trigger, identify what are some strategies, right? And you want to encourage self-care. When you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, you have a lot of anger because you feel, again, that there are needs that's not being met. So you want to encourage that self-care, taking time for themselves, and that co-regulation, making sure that they have a support system for themselves so that they're not doing it by themselves. Whether they want to have the other parent work more closely with them and maybe utilizing counseling to learn how to work with the other parent, or pulling on maybe another family member that can step in, an auntie, an uncle, or grandma, a best friend, a church, someone that can also help them so that they can be able to have some type of help. It's very important so they can regulate. some of those feelings. Next slide, please. Okay, so what does the youth need, right? So youth advocates have a unique job. I don't know if there's any youth advocates in this room. I think it's only family advocates. But we need to be able to communicate with the parents and the caregivers what their youth need and why sometimes there is a lot of combativeness because of what the young person needs versus what that caregiver needs, right? So sometimes the youth need to be able to be listened to without being corrected sometimes, right? So sometimes our young people, they talk loud, they may use the wrong verbiage, all these different things. They might even say a curse word. And sometimes that's the way for them to communicate sometimes. But we need to be able to support them by listening to them without correcting them so that they can get their whole thought out. Because that can be very overwhelming that I'm always being corrected and you're not listening to me. Again, that is one of those needs, right? So youth needs to feel supported and then reflect back their feelings to them. So they're young and they don't have a lot of life experience, some of them. So a lot of times, if they don't have role models that are able to show them how to communicate effectively, coping skills when it comes to their feelings, emotional management, they don't know how to do it. So as a family peer advocate, that's something that we can also help with our young people, whether it's the youth advocate showing them how to do it, as well as, having those times where you may meet the family and the youth together so that they can reflect those feelings and again, be heard. So that when they do have that communication and mom or dad or grandma, whoever the caregiver is in the room, they can feel like, okay, the advocate is listening to me. There's someone that can understand me. So now I can feel a little bit more comfortable sharing my feelings, right? And you want to, again, offer them choices. How do you communicate with your mom instead of cursing? Is there a way that maybe you can write a letter? Or there may be a way that you can say, can we have maybe someone be the mediator? Or do you want to sometimes take a walk or listen to music before you engage in a conversation with mom when she tells you something that you don't like, right? And you want to help them name their emotions. Again, you want them to name their emotions because many times when you're not able to name an emotion and identify what that emotion is, it's hard to move and heal from it because I don't know I'm jealous. I just know I'm angry. I don't know that because my mom is always praising my brother that I'm not mad at him. But I'm really jealous. But if I don't know that I'm not dealing with that, so now I'm mad at my brother not realizing what emotion that I'm feeling. So you want to help the young people and as well as the caregivers to name that. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I want us to take some of the information that we just had, and I hope I didn't go too fast. I want us to do breakout sessions, right? So I'm gonna have the scenarios. And I don't, there's 31 people here, so we should have, or maybe, I'm not sure how you want to break it up evenly, but I want to maybe have 4 or 5 breakout rooms, TJ.
All right,
And what
so
we're going to do, yeah,
I was going to say I do have the four
if it's
breakout
four,
rooms there ready for you.
if it's four already, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that there's
All right, so I'm going to start recording again, and then you go
everyone in
on
the
with
group can
instructions.
speak. So
Okay.
it may be four, may be good. But now we have 32. Okay, yes, okay. So what we want to do is we're going to give each group a scenario, and I'm going to give the scenario together so um, I don't have to, break out and go into every room. So we're going to do a scenario, and I want everyone to be able to identify what are some of the possible unmet needs of that particular individual. What are some of the stressors? And if you can identify maybe a trauma trigger, right? Or you want to maybe think about some trauma questions that you want to ask, like going towards that, what happened to you type of response, and those compassionate responses that we talked about a moment ago. I'm here with you, you're not alone. So we're going to do one together, and then I'm going to give the scenario. So let's do one, and then I'm going to tell group one, group two, and so forth what their scenario would be, okay? So the first scenario, it says a parent raises their voice during a meeting saying, "No one ever listens. I've been asking for help for months and nothing changes," right? So I'm not sure if anyone wants to come off of unmute. I just want to maybe hear from one or two people. What do you think some of the underlying anger might be? And maybe identify one of an unmet need. Can anybody
Um,
unmute and just chime in?
my name is Wanda Martinez, and I think that the mother, the parent, is not being heard. And she feels like she's being left unseen.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for that, Miss Wanda. I love
Okay.
that. Good. Very good. Anybody else want to chime in about what they
She might not be
feel?
feeling respected.
Say that again, Miss Wendy. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
She might not be feeling respected.
Very good. Very good. Very good, guys. So those are the similar things that when you guys do your breakout session, I want you guys to have that um, communication. And I don't know how long you want the group to be. We can maybe do it like maybe 10 minutes. I don't know. I don't know how long each group, because I want them to have enough time. So I have here for this scenario, what would be some of the underneath anger? And it's some things that Miss Wendy and also Miss Wanda has said. So fear of being dismissed is what some of that underneath anger may be. Shame about struggling, right? Because again, they haven't needed the service. Exhaustion, feeling powerless in the system. So that's some of the underneath anger. And then, like the two ladies have said, the possible unmet needs are they don't feel heard. So the need to feel heard, to feel respected, to have clear communication because, again, no one ever listens. So she doesn't feel that she's being heard. And predictability, right? Some of the trauma triggers that may be going on for her is because she didn't be heard before. So what you may want to ask that parent is, what part of this feels most overwhelming for you right now? Because again, this person will know that okay, we're going to try to work together and figure this out, as well as what will help you feel heard in this moment, so that you can address her concerns right there and then, right? And then a compassionate response. This is one that I have written down. It said it makes sense that you feel frustrated. You've been carrying a lot on your own. I'm here with you, and we'll take this one step at a time. Okay? So when you do your session, your breakout sessions, I want you to think about those needs that's on the bottom of the screen. The possible, again, unmet need, the possible stresses, the trauma triggers, and the compassionate responses. So group number one, and again, I don't know if you got a piece of paper and pen, may be able to pop in the room. But again, whoever's going to be in scenario one, room one, will be a teenager storms out of a family meeting, slams the door, and says, "I don't care. This is stupid." So I want you guys to think about, again, those four questions, right? The second group,
Wait, before you
a
move forward, so
caregiver
no,
become.
So group one, just so you're aware, is Vanessa G, Pilar, Yasmin, Maria Fuentes, Melissa, Ruth, and Mark. That's group one for that.
Thank you, TJ.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, the second one is a caregiver becomes quiet and withdrawn during a meeting. When asked a question, they respond sharply. It doesn't matter. Nothing helps anyway. So that's scenario 2.
So room two is Wendy, Crystal Michelle, Amanda Frost, Claudia Stewart, Angelique LaSalle, and Wanda Martinez.
Okay, great. Okay. The next scenario, a young child throws toys, screams, and refuses to leave the room when it's time to transition. So that's that third scenario. What is the underlying need for that child?
Is that room three?
Yes.
Okay, so room three is Erica, Jessica, Alfina, Tanya, and then Ishwan. And again, before you go on, so room two, we missed out on, that's Wendy, Crystal, Amanda, Claudia, Angelique, and Wanda. Room three, Erica, Jessica, Alfia, Tanya, and Ishwan.
And did you say you're putting these in the chat, the scenarios again, or?
Well, I will, once Sandra's done, I'm going to type them real fast in the chat for you again.
Perfect, thanks.
Go on, Sandra.
Okay, so room 4, a family. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so room 4, a family arrives angry, saying, "We're tired of repeating our story. Every time we get a new worker, we have to start all over." And I want you to identify what those needs are.
Room three scenario one more time.
A family arrives angry, saying,
No, room three scenario.
"Oh, sorry. You want me to tell you the scenario for room 3?
Yeah. Well, all right. This because it's asked. Everyone wants to repeat, so I'm gonna put them in the chat for you. So let's just go through.
No problem.
Room
no
one.
problem. I'm not going to repeat that.
Let's start with room one, and we'll go through.
Okay, room 1. The scenario is a teenager storms out of a family meeting, slams the door, and says, "I don't care. This is stupid."
2.
A caregiver becomes quiet and withdrawn during a meeting. When asked a question, they respond sharply. It doesn't matter. Nothing helps anyway.
Room 3.
A young child throws toys, screams, and refuses to leave the room when it's time to transition.
Refuses to leave the room when one more time.
When it's time to transition.
All right.
Question, if we haven't, my name hasn't been called, so are we doing group 4 or?
We didn't finish the rooms yet. We got another group.
Okay.
All right. So for room 4 will be Ruth, Selena, Virginia, Anika, and Patricia. So when I open the rooms, you're automatically going to be pulled into those rooms for you. I just put in the room in the chat, and the scenario was as given, and someone will be coming around if you need be to just make sure everyone's on par. You will be allowed to leave the room if necessary, come back to this room and ask questions, and we'll put you back in. I am giving you all about 15 minutes to converse and we'll go from there. Any questions or comments?
No, but you might have to put them in the rooms. Usually when you go into breakouts, you usually lose your chat sometimes. Just
Well, the main chat is
Yeah,
the main
that's
chat. But I'll work on it. I'll see what I can do for y'all. All right.
Pretty sure that it does follow them into the rooms because we just did this for a different training. Yasmin, you will be put in room.
okay.
All right. So
So
I'm going.
do you need me to read them for room 4?
No, I mean I put it in the chat. Does anybody not see it? Are we good?
no, I see it. I forgot what
Okay,
happened,
good. Okay,
that
yeah,
it
okay,
might
cool.
transfer with us.
All right. So open the rooms. Join the rooms, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, TJ.
You're very welcome. All right, everyone's back. All right, Sandra, you could take it away.
Okay, thank you guys for doing that. Hopefully you had some interesting conversation and you was able to um get some good feedback. So I just want each group, maybe, I don't know if anybody identified a reporter that you can report back. What was some of your conversation? I answered those questions. And which group we want to go first? Or do we want to just go in group order? I see Yasmin had
No, I'm trying to figure out what
Group order.
Oh,
The group
I'm
order
trying to figure out
probably.
which part of my team members is gonna talk. Oh my God.
All right, so let's just do this in order. I'll read the names and whoever is
Can't
gonna.
hear it.
All right, exactly. So room one was Pilar, Yasmin, Mark, Melissa, Vanessa, Ruth, and Maria.
So our scenario was a teenage kid stormed out the room and said that it wasn't fair. So my
Okay.
group, we came up with a lot of different scenarios. I think great scenarios. One of the things that our group came up with, I'm thinking about how can we be supportive of the parent. You know what can be done for the parent to help them understand the teenager a little bit more. Another scenario was trying to assess what's going on with the teenager. Because again, we all agreed in my group that teenagers are young adult, little kids becoming young adults. And this is a time where they're experiencing relationships. A lot of times they're experiencing drugs. I would say that our group agreed that this part as a parent or and as an FPA is learning and assessing the needs of your family and the individuals at hand. So like say for instance just basically asking questions because the scenario that was given to us is a small scenario. We could play out so many different ways. So we basically said, let's look for resources and things that can help.
So what was some of the unmet needs?
The unmet need could have been, we don't know if the kid is getting high or not. You know, we could, the unmet need could be, we don't know, maybe the mom just needed her moment. One of the things that I shared in my group is, as a parent myself, if you never ever in your life say, you know what, I need a break, then you're not a good parent. That's just my opinion. Which means that, you know, sometimes you can just be overwhelmed with everything that's going on. And you might just need a you day, a self-care day, you know, a break. Just a break, if that make any sense.
So you're talking you're talking about the teenager that stormed out the room, right, and said, "I don't
Yes.
care." We're thinking about the anger of the young person, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is identifying what their need might be. So some of their unmet needs might be again For them to say, I don't care, this is stupid. Some of his unmet needs, he wants some sense of control, right? Because we know teenagers, sometimes they're trying to gain their independence. That's one of their needs. They have to feel autonomous. So emotional safety might be another unmet need, that they feel like their parent or caregiver is not trying to understand them, right? And they also want to feel a level of respect, like their feelings matter. And sometimes they might need some space to cool down. Sometimes, as a parent, a caregiver, or FPA, we might be asking them, why did you do that? Why did you say that? Instead of saying, okay, go take a moment, and we can come back to this, right? Because remember, we want to be able to identify as a peer advocate, because that's why we want to be able to connect and understand, why is this young person behaving this way, right? We need to understand what are their unmet needs, so that we can tap into, we can know what strategy we can use. That some of the things that we talked about, is it fear, is it shame, is it anger, is it not being heard? Some of those things that we talked about. Great. And one of the compassionate responses we may have for them is, I see that you feel like it's too much. When you're ready, I want to understand it. That's how I'll talk about it later. Right? Very important. Thank you, group one. So who in group two wants to talk about their scenario, and what was, not talk about the scenario so much, but to answer those, what was the unmet needs? What some of the stressors, and what are maybe a compassionate response for that caregiver?
Again, group two is Angelique, Wendy, Wanda, Crystal, Claudia, and Amanda.
You want us to read it first?
I can read it.
Okay.
A caregiver becomes quiet and withdrawn during a meeting. When asked a question, they respond sharply. It doesn't matter. Nothing helps anyway. What are some unmet needs you guys discussed as a group?
Some of the needs, we said that she probably feels powerless and hasn't had her voice raised. Like no one's given her the platform to use her voice. She's in need of some peer support and just needs to be heard.
Very good. Very good. Right? Some of the other underlying needs that you guys hit on was very good. So you said helplessness, right? Is when you said she didn't feel heard. She might be depressed. There might be some depression there, right?
Mm.
Again, nothing matters. Again, because again, after you get overwhelmed, could be a set of depression, feeling judged, right? And then we need that,
Yeah.
she needs to feel validated, that her thoughts and feelings, emotional support. She needs someone. Again, sometimes that co-regulation is so important, and understanding she might be needing some self-care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. One of the compassionate responses for that situation might say, it sounds like you've been carrying a lot for a long time, and you don't have to do this alone. I'm here with you. That's a compassionate response that we may be able to use as a family peer advocate, for her to understand she doesn't have to carry this load alone, right? And sometimes helping her to identify another support that she can have. Great job. Thank you, group two.
Welcome.
What about group three?
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
Sure.
I wanted to just say to my group too, my name is Angelique. I am the caregiver in that situation. And I'm not trying to, my group was kind of like the best because they allowed me to speak the whole time regarding my son's recent suicide attempt. And
I'm
as a
so
parent,
sorry.
I was really trying to it was a perfect situation, that scenario, because I do have that same situation, and
Mm.
I'm sorry that I kind of overtook the conversation group too, but when I tell you, they did say, it sounds like you've been carrying a lot. Where are you located? And I'm here. You're not alone. So
Oh, wow. So
I
they
just
actually use
wanted
the
to,
same, they did the,
they did
wow.
use that. And I wanted
Awesome.
to acknowledge
And
that and give you
thank you for
guys
sharing.
your
Yeah.
flowers
And
and
don't be
say thank
Oh
you.
my
sorry,
goodness.
please.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you too for being, that ear that you guys, we
Closed
again
mouth don't get fed, right? So
right,
you can't
right.
get the help you want if you don't voice it.
Right. As a peer advocate, we are that person that with that lived experience. So thank you for sharing
Thank you.
your story, Angelique. Thank you so much. Thanks. Okay. Who's gonna do group 3?
So room 3 is Alfia, Tanya, Eshawn, excuse me, Erica, and Jessica.
Who in that group wants to report back? Just some of the unmet needs and maybe a compassionate response so that we will have enough time for group 4 and then we can finish up. Anyone from group 3? And that probably was difficult.
So we had the
that was still
scenario.
with a child.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had the child that was transitioning from a room to a new room. We didn't really, it was kind of a vague scenario, so we weren't sure like if it was an at-home situation or in a classroom. Regardless, one of the compassionate responses we decided could be to sit down and have a conversation with the child about where they're going next, regardless of if it's from playtime in the bedroom to bath time or dinner time, or from classroom to a different classroom, whatever, having a conversation with them and letting them know what they can expect, what their expectations are, maybe giving them like a 5-minute transition period, 5 to whatever it may be, depending on the situation. But giving them time to adjust in that situation, and letting them know what to expect and kind of walking them through that.
Very good. Thank you. I know that that scenario was probably a little bit different because I was with a child that's throwing stuff and a lot of times we work with older, youth and we work with parents. But again, when we are the family advocate, that might be a situation that the parent is actually dealing with, right? And letting that parent know that sometimes for certain children, they could be having sensory overload, right? This is why they are behaving. Remember, when children communicate sometimes in an inappropriate way, that also are trying to communicate an unmet need. They're not able to verbally say what they are feeling, and sometimes they're saying, "I need attention, I need love, I need to be heard." So again, sensory overload, fear of change. A lot of our kids have problems with transitions, right? And this is why the children are even, signed to our program because they may have behavior issues. And this is when parents have a lot of times when they transition from one activity to another. Feeling unsafe and overwhelmed, right? And their need is sometimes they need to be able to co-regulate their emotional regulation, so that when children hear the word no, they don't have these outbursts. We have sometimes those situations in our high schools, right, or blended case management, or when we in intense case blended case management classrooms where they throw in chairs because again they don't know how to regulate their emotions, or they don't understand clear cues. So that's something that they need, and also comfort. Very good. Group 4, I mean 5, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's group 4. You're right. And that's Patricia,
Group 4, yeah.
Anika, Virginia, and Ruth.
Who want to report back?
Yes, I'll take it home. This is Virginia.
Hi, Virginia.
Hi there. Our scenario was that a family arrives. I wrote this down, so I don't have my angry.
I can read it. Okay. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So a family arrives angry, saying, "Tired of repeating our story. Every time we get a new worker, we have to start all over."
So,
What you
our
guys is
response for the possible unmet need is the constant transition, just
Mm-hmm.
constantly being thrown from one worker to another, not really. We don't even know if the person, the family was told why they keep being transferred from one worker to the other. We thought it could be maybe because the anger, the family is demonstrating anger, possibly the workers that don't know how to de-escalate, and they just resort to just switching them to one staff after the other, or transition. We know in this field, you can have a service
Mm-hmm.
provider today, and next time you come, you have a new service provider,
Mm-hmm.
and that the stressor is having to be re-traumatized,
Right. Right.
constantly having to relive their story. And so the compassion is letting them know that, you know what, today is not that day. We don't have to discuss your story. I just want to introduce myself to you and tell you a little bit about myself and how I'm here to support and empower you.
That's awesome. Great. 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 That's good. And thank you guys. So some of those unmet needs is what you just said. That continuity, always having to change, right? System fatigue, having new
Mhm.
workers, loss of trust. I like this person. The minute I trust them, now they're gone. Feeling invisible, past trauma of services, respect, and emotional safety. And that compassionate response that you have was perfect. So great. Good
Sandra,
job,
add,
everybody.
Sandra, to add on to
Um,
that would be that, like the pressing need also with having to be switched. Because I was in group 4. This is Anika.
mhm.
Also, they're not
Yes.
getting resources, because if you keep getting switched week after week after week or whatever, however the frequency of appointments
Mhm.
are, they're not getting a service. And so there is a pressing that maybe I need this service, or maybe doesn't know she needs a service, but not getting those services either. Because if you keep getting switched, you cannot be getting, signed up for services in there.
Right.
So,
Right. That may be an actual true situation where you might not get it, right? And we know that in our field, because there are a lot of turnover for multiple reasons, that sometimes may be the case, and we want to be able to provide them with care and concern. Thank you guys so much for that. You guys did a great job. Very, very good. Yay, yay, yay. So now let's go to the next slide. Thank you. That was very good, everybody. Okay. So now let's talk about some practical skills. So we already now have um, a way of trying to identify the unmet needs and try to work with the parent and the young person to figure out, what are some of the things that are triggering to them, are causing them some challenges, right? So now we want to talk about practical skills, right? So it says emotional mapping, trigger trigger identification, sorry, grounding techniques, co-regulation strategies, and strength-based reframing. Let's take one at a time. So when we're talking about emotional mapping, that's similar to what we talked about earlier when we said we want to help them to label their emotion. And one thing that I use in my anger management class is called the anger iceberg. So a lot of times we know that anger is a secondary emotion or what we talked about is a cover-up emotion because it covers up and masks a lot of things. So we want to be able to understand what are some of those emotions that they may feel frustrated, they may feel scared, they may be some shame, it might be overwhelmed. It could be something as simple as not getting enough sleep. So let's understand how to help them with that. So emotional mapping, one way of helping families to identify what's going on for them so they can have a different experience. Trigger identifications. We need to help our families and our young people understand what are their triggers, because once they are able to identify their triggers, they are able to hopefully put some things in place to say, okay, I know I'm getting ready to go, again, like I said earlier, to this ACS office. I know that every single time I come to this office, I already have an attitude before I get in there because of the situation. So maybe I need to take some breathing techniques. Maybe I need to call my friend before I get in there. Maybe I can, you know, play some music. So what are my triggers? You identify them, right? You want to identify them. They can either be considered red flags or they can be called, we also call them activating events. So what are some of the red flags that every time I encounter this situation, I'm getting triggered, right? And knowing your triggers can help you prepare beforehand so that you don't explode in court, in ACS meeting, or even with your child if they might be a trigger for you, right? The next one is grounding techniques. And I don't know if I'm talking fast because I can talk fast, so I apologize if I am. Let me take a breath. Right? So even because now, like I just did, that's a grounding technique. Okay, I can get overwhelmed. I can talk too fast. I can get so excited, like, oh my goodness, I'm doing this training. Whew, take a breath. Right? So, what are some of the things that can help the families to ground themselves? Sometimes it can be something as simple as take a deep breath and, imagining the tension leaving your body or taking yourself to a place where you feel a little bit less stressed and more supported. They have something where you can name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear. Again, everybody has a different technique, right? And you want to help them to learn how to center themselves. So sometimes sitting in an area and making sure that their feet are planted to the ground and they can sit straight and just be able again to take a moment to clear their head so that before they have any interaction that may be harmful, that may be aggressive or hostile, take a moment, think about what are your goals, right? Think about, okay, what am I feeling right now? Where was it at in my body so that I can understand that I need to be able to calm myself down, because if I interact right now, it's not going to be the best interaction, right? Co-regulation is when we use those strategies when we are our support system, right? Whether it's a friend, calling my mom, calling my therapist, right? And this happens before we can regulate ourselves, because a lot of times even a caregiver, when you're dealing with a young baby, we know that most babies, I'm not going to say most, but a lot of babies don't know how to self-soothe at first. They need to learn that by their caregiver holding them. And as we hold them, and as we sometimes maybe look at them, rock them, hum, then eventually they learn from our calm that, okay, now they learn how to do it themselves. So that co-regulation piece is important, not only for us as family peer advocates to be with them, we want them to identify someone in their personal life because they have to do the day by day. And how can that caregiver be that for the young person, right? That's very important that we are able to identify that our young people need a calm presence. So that's what we want to help the parents do so they can provide that for their young person. And then lastly, it says strength-based reframing. how do we change our language? A lot of times when I get a referral, I may get it from an ACS worker, for example, and they may staggers. I want you to know this family is combative. They're very rude. They're this and they're that, right? So you want to be able to try to reframe those words, right? Because what happens is when families are labeled that way, then now that attitude and that energy is carried to worker. So one of those, things that the scenario that we just talked about with that person that keep on getting new workers, sometimes if a worker just reading somebody else's notes, they just take on that personality. So we have to be to change that to more strength-based reframing. So instead of saying they're non-compliance, you can say they just for whatever reason they didn't follow through, right? Or she's you can say she's trying to protect herself. I don't know what's going on. I just want to be able to work with her. He doesn't listen. Maybe overwhelmed. So you want to change your language. And this is where maybe you really want to use those iMessages. I don't know if you guys heard about iMessages, but you want to do the I feel, that you are very angry right now because you're yelling. If we work together, I need you to be able to, again, lower your voice so that we can accomplish much because I'm here to support you, right? Instead of saying you disrespectful, you don't have no manners, this is why your kid don't listen. All the different things that I've actually heard from other family advocates, once the moon. I've been an advocate for have to change when we talk about that strength-based, approach. That's also the way we write our notes and the way that we communicate with people. So you want to reframe that because when you reframe it, it's going to give a different experience, even how you interact with that individual. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so what is say, and again, that goes back to that. Let's slow down together. I want to understand what's feeling overwhelming. You deserve support, not judgment. Let's figure this out as a team. Okay, so next slide. So when you're working with a family and you're doing all that you can do, and now you need additional support because the anger made so big for this individual that they really still are not able to work well with you. You want to be able to know when to seek additional support. Anytime there's a safety concern, you always want to make sure you ask for help, whether they, threatening you, themselves, the person, right? When it's escalated beyond your roles. As family peer advocate, we're not therapists. We're not social workers, right? There's that is beyond the scope of your role. You need to know when to go and to get that person that has whatever that need is and those roles that are not your responsibility so that you do your work where you don't get overwhelmed, right? The signs of crisis. If you see someone that is in crisis, whether it's a mental health crisis, a physical crisis, and you know that that's not your purview, you want to get some help, right? That might be calling 911. That might be calling mobile crisis, right? And the need for clinical interventions. Utilize if you guys work with any clinicians or some people have a partner, or you might work alongside someone who has that support. Make sure that you have that support so that if you need to have that intervention, you can also have that. Sometimes, when you're working with families on their worst day, and you got to go home to your own life, you want to have that support yourself. So those clinical interventions are very important. Next slide. Okay, so what are some of the takeaways for today that we want to make sure that we are mindful of? Anger is a signal, it's not defiance, right? Make sure that you mute yourself, please. Family systems influence anger patterns. So again, sometimes, again, when one person in the family is affected by stress or is affected by some, overwhelming feelings, the whole family is involved. So if you're working with the parent, it's going to affect the young person. Or what's going on with the young person is going to affect the parents. So we need to understand the whole family system is not just that one individual that was the case was under. FPAs can transform anger into understanding by, again, knowing your own cues and helping the families to be able to identify what are some of the things that you're feeling, what are some of those things that you need that you're not getting, and allowing them to communicate that so that they can put those trust, what we talked about before, identifying some of those things, understanding their warning signs, understanding their triggers, learning how be heard and learn how to communicate, right? So that they don't allow those things to take over. So now they are not getting their needs met. And last thing says compassion plus boundaries equals safety. So we always want to work in a space of compassion, understanding that anger, again, is a signal because they may have felt, unsafe. They may be protecting themselves. That's not being met. So we need to be able to create boundaries so that we don't fudge, the boundaries and do things misconstrued. We have to create boundaries and safety because a lot of our families may have had a lot of dysregulation. So we want to create safety. That's one of the principles of this trauma lens, right? So you want to be mindful of that. Any next slide. Okay, so anyone would like to take themselves off of mute and say what is one decision you will make and how you will respond to anger going forward. If you have learned something new today, how you will respond differently. Anyone?
You don't take it personal.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Anika. Yes. Don't take it personal. That's very important because it can feel very personal.
I will
Anybody
take,
else?
this is Wanda Martinez again. I will take a lot of deep breaths.
Yeah, Miss Wanda.
Yes, I will take a lot of deep breaths and I will pray.
Yes. Yes. Deep breaths, centering ourselves, and pray. Absolutely. I do the same thing. Anybody else? One more person?
I wrote down a couple of the script lines you said. I really like
Okay.
that. I hear how hard this has been. It makes sense that you feel this way. You're not alone in this. And I also like the I
Okay.
do want to hear you, and I can do that best when you speak respectfully.
Yes, 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 because there's nothing wrong with letting them know it's not okay for you to talk to me like that. But sometimes just saying it's not okay for you to talk to me like that can feel combative to them. So you say, I hear you and I want to work with you and let's have that communication. Very good because how we say things, mindful of our tone, being mindful of our facial expression and our body language, right, is very important. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Next slide. All right, guys. Again, my name is Sandra Staggers, and I thank you so much for being here today. I pray that you learned something today that you will be able to use in your roles as family peer advocates. This is my information. If you ever have to reach out to us, we do trainings just like families together. We are out of New York City, so we normally work with the 5 boroughs, but we definitely would love to hear from you if you need support or if you have a family that may be in our area. We advocate for them and we do all the things that you do. And I just really thank you for being here. And hopefully, I did a good job. Thank you.